Okay, hi everyone. Coach Sandra here, and today I'm going to be talking about what I call a clarion call or a calling. And so we can interchange the words to mission or purpose in life, life purpose and so forth. And so there's many definitions, and I use all of them. But for the sake of this discussion, I really want to use the word calling for this. Let me make sure that my microphone is okay here, and I'm pulling up my notes as well. And so this clarion call is basically a strong request for something or clear action, if you will, which is going to be a little bit of a contradiction to what I'm talking about. So bear with me. Sometimes taking action and then just surrendering can still be sort of an action, if you will. So pardon if there's any contradictions, because it is a little bit abstract, and I will try to solidify it. So I want to share sort of an experience, and it's a process. It's more of a process that I'm actually going to be talking about. A clear action or a clear calling, excuse me, doesn't always mean without doubt or confusion. Okay. And I'm going to very superficially, I'm not going to get specifically into my calling, but definitely try to speak from experience. So perhaps this way you can understand more what I am talking about. I do have a quote, and I want to be able to also go onto my phone because it was a Instagram post that I wrote. And so let me get that and then get back to you guys. Okay, here we go. So one of the two quotes, one of them is, well, both of them are Joseph Campbell. And we must be willing to get rid of the life we've planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. And you can interpret, most people who don't know Joseph Campbell's work interprets perhaps this in a more superficial way. And I'll get to that. It's almost like you're chasing something, but that's not really what this is about. And then he goes on to say, and this is a different context, but if anybody's familiar with Joseph Campbell, they'll understand like the hero's journey and mythology. And if you look at mythology, you see that everyone goes on a quest, whether it's Native American, it doesn't matter what continent you're in, whether you're in Africa or the United States or you're in Europe, you see this, right? A good example of movies, and just to kind of hone it in a little bit, would be like Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's work, or even the Game of Thrones. You can look at these stories, right, where there's the heroine or the hero going on this quest, right? Keep that in mind as we're talking about that. So Joseph Campbell, in another quote, when looking back at your life, you will see that the moments which seems to be great failures, followed by wreckage, were the incidents that shaped the life you have now. If you're 20 years old, most likely you're not going to always relate to this, no offense, because you're 20 years old and you don't have all this experience. You might be intelligent, you might go to college, you might be really smart and great and all that. I love it, and I certainly don't want to be condescending, but I'm speaking also for midlife people and people definitely, their late 20s moving into older years. We sometimes hear people, especially in social media, we hear it, reality show. I'm pulling up my notes here, by the way, because I want to make some points here. We think that it's always about what we do for work. I have people actually, private message me. I have people tell me that they wish that they could do what I do. And although there are many people that I guess do what I do, but is it their calling? So when you look back in your life, when I look back on my life, and I think this is so interesting because there has been so much suffering, so many struggles in my life, and so many setbacks, but great epiphanies and great stories and sort of this, the death and the rebirth. And my calling, without trying to sound too abstract, my calling is sort of who I am. And I think that for a lot of people, I would like to think that most everyone is precisely that. As we begin to discover who we are, we also know what we're capable of doing as work, or what our passion is, which our passion doesn't have to be our career, by the way. But I don't want to get off on that. The calling for me was very painful. I did not always want to do what I'm doing today, or a big chunk of my work. And what I realized, and I've heard this from other people, reading some of the great sages and philosophers and things like that, and reading biographies and things, and reading about redemption and reading about the mistakes and the failures, is that we don't tell that story. We hear these, personal development gurus and the spiritual people and everything say about, oh, this is so lovely and it's so wonderful, and for like $15 you can buy a book and it will teach you the how-tos. But nobody, or rarely, people tell you about the process of really what a true calling is, because a lot of times we don't want to honor our calling. This is kind of, it's not an ugly truth, but it's a truth. And so if you find yourself feeling confused or confused and not really quite clear, you have some gifts, you have some talents, how are you going to really bring that out, right? That's a whole different thing. And so when I read some of the Joseph Campbell stuff, and when you listen to his lectures, the hero's journey is not one that is joyful. It's not like Dorothy holding on to the Tin Man and the lion and walking down, singing whatever it is, the yellow brick road. It really, truly is not all that. And so this video is more geared to people who find themselves, even if you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, empty nester. It's even for you. Our calling, it's never too late to embark on our calling. And that's what this is kind of about. I think it's about discovering our true self. And I'm always on this journey of discovering more of who I am. Now, I took a big chunk of that, and I have bits and pieces here and there. But how did I arrive to that point? I arrived to that point with suffering and with pain and with doors being closed and relationships ending and loss and grief and not always being able to attain what I wanted, even materialistically, or not even being clear on a lot of the things that I'm doing. I was called to do that. Even during my formal training, there were times where I doubted, is this really what I need to do? And that pull, that unexplainable, deep pull was there. And it was not comfortable. In fact, there's a lot of self-doubt. This is, I think, much more normal than the person who's straight shooter and says, oh, I know exactly, I'm a teacher, I'm a this, I'm a that. When you hear people say that, I'm concerned about that, because, and in the context I'm saying that is that they're sort of boasting or proving something, right? And yet these people, when I know some people that want to do this or that, and they tell me, and they still are dissatisfied because they're not accepting the fact that they may be dissatisfied. They may not be accepting the fact that they're not really living their true calling, but they're more attracted to what being a teacher or spiritual guru may look like, I suppose. And we see this a lot now coming in. Everybody's a yoga instructor, everybody's a chef with this kind of cooking or that, and that's fine. I'm not ridiculing this. Yeah. In my experience, it's really growing to, it's really about loving yourself, deepening the relationship with the self. And how I think part of how we do this, I'm not saying that it just maybe is, I mean, sure there's other ways to get there. And let me get my notes, because I really want to, what I've experienced in my life is there is a lot of loss, loss and sacrifice. And these are really big words that are just so taboo. We can't talk about, oh, sacrifice, or we can't do that. We can't be negative. But I think that we're fools if we don't take a look at that. I mean, I talk to so many people and they'll say, well, I don't regret this, I don't do that. And I think it's a really great, I think it's grave to not say that you don't have. I know I have regrets. I know that I've maybe perhaps have made some poor choices in my life. I've had failures in my life. I had to learn lessons. I love what my husband says. He says, in academia, you get the lesson and then the test, but in real life, you get the test and then the lesson. And it's a constant, it's a constant death and rebirth. And this is what the calling, the true authentic calling does to you. It gnaws, it pulls, it makes you doubt, it's confusing. It's not meant to be this angelic, aha moment. It costs, it devours you. It devours you and it spits you out. It shatters your mindset over again. And then you're reborn to then happen again, over again. Death and rebirth, shattering, breaking, fears, limitations, the I can'ts, the what ifs, all the doubt. The self-confidence goes down, then it comes up, it arises, it goes up. I mean, it's when you look at mythology, I think that's one of the reasons why it's in place, as well as you see the struggle. And it's a bitter, sweet struggle. It's not confined. The calling, a true calling, is not confined somewhere hiding, learning all these concepts, reading all these books about personal development or spirituality, or becoming, even if you're just an extremely intellectual person and you're very left brain and it's studying economy or studying engineering or something, whatever your thing is, right? And this is the way it's going to be. And this is, and I'm not saying that you can't plan things in your life. I'm not an extremist. So I'm just saying that really the life is waiting for you, just like what Joseph Campbell was talking about. And it's a painful one. And, when you're breaking through mindsets and you're breaking through things and you're learning and you are taking classes and maybe you are getting formal training on some things, which is totally cool because I'm a big lifelong learner. So I'm always, but it's not just in the classroom. It's not just in those books. Everyday life is what enables you to it's the calling. It's the wounds that you have in your life. The people that break up with you and that abandon you and reject you and that you reject and that you abandon. It's friendships. I mean, I had a friend, I'm thinking of a couple right now, but one gal who I thought we actually had a good friendship and I had known her for years. She just didn't like, this was years ago, and I was taking some classes, and I was becoming a practitioner of a certain modality, and she really didn't like that. It went against what she thought it went against. She was uncomfortable with it. She didn't feel safe. She wanted security. You know, I pushed her buttons. I provoked something in her, but that wasn't my fault. She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept that I was taking classes on this. You know, it went against, you know, her beliefs. She was unable to support me. And it was very painful for me because she didn't even really come out and tell me. I mean, really just say, you know, I think it's best, you know, I just can't be your friend anymore. I mean, she just kind of left me there. And I had to accept the fact that she made a unilateral decision, you know, and there's relationships because of this calling that I myself actually left a very important, meaningful relationship. Now, it is true that there were some issues, right? Because some of you might be saying, well, you know, love withstands everything. It's solid. It can't. Well, yes, it's true. And there's another point that it's not always true. You know, love doesn't survive everything. There needs to be commitment. There needs to be the willingness to change. You know, the reason why people break up, friendships break up, and, you know, is really this unwillingness to be flexible in the mind, to be flexible with the belief. And part of my journey, of my calling was, I mean, I could go on and tell you stories. I'm very grateful now to do what I do for people. I'm not a famous person. I'm not this, you know, I haven't written all these books, and I'm not, you know, but I am loved. I'm very grateful that I'm loved by my clients, and that I can offer these sort of thought-provoking videos, and that I can try to enable, this is who I am. This is my calling, is to do this. I don't get paid for this. And so I want to encourage you as well, that if you find yourself, it doesn't matter if you're 50 years old or if you're 30 years old or you're even 70, for God's sake. I have my 85-year-old father who's rediscovering things about himself. It's a beautiful process to watch. It's sacred, and it touches my core. I mean, it moves me to think that somebody who's 85 years old can actually change their mindset. It's invigorating. It's hopeful. Yeah. And so when you have problems with people in your environment, and you have situations that make you feel uncomfortable, or that, you know, because we all project, by the way, all of us do. I do, you know, we always project on each other, right? Or assign feelings that we deny in ourselves to other people. The important thing is to become aware of them. And if we're not, we usually have good friends or somebody that wants to help us see that blind spot. This is what relationships are all about. These are the kind of relationships I have, are the kind of relationships where I can do, that's what my calling provided me, this opportunity, because I put on my warrior gear and I decided that enough was enough. My calling was pulling at me, where I had to, I didn't know this and this is another thing too, is I didn't know, for example, that this particular relationship I was talking about was extremely important, extremely painful. It took me years to get over, to be honest. The guilt, the loss. I mean, this person I would still be talking to if it wasn't for, it was more complicated. Let's just put it that way. But I mean, some people just can't sustain that. They're unable to. And you know, support you in who you are and what you're doing, and it's not about you, it's about them. And when we begin to, you know, we've all heard it, right? Change is the most difficult, right? People say they like change, but they don't, especially when it's about that you might lose. I mean, you're losing identity all the time. You're losing what you think you are. It's a very daunting experience. And I will tell you from personal experience, it is a dark night of the soul. It really, it brings you to your knees. It burns you up. It turns you into ashes. It breaks every part of you. It shatters your mind in a way. I mean, when they say mind blowing, it's like mind blowing. It's a mental process that is, it's painful. And even now, as I'm talking about this, you can probably hear it's just, I get even emotional about it a little bit, because I can see why sometimes it's difficult for people. So my calling is to bring out that process, to help you through that process, right? That's part of the job I do. And so you can hear that it's not sexy, it's not attractive, people are, I mean, do they want to actually go through that? But that is the most rewarding. And again, I'm not trying to tell all of you, I'm not going to sit here just in case, let's put in parentheses, that it always has to be painful. But some of us have to go through that dark night of the soul to then enable other people to say, watch out for this or do that, if that makes sense, right? So not everybody is going to go through the same thing, but there's definitely loss. If it's not loss of a person or friendships or marriage or breakups, it's certainly a loss of identity. People hold on to identity and their mindset. It's just this, you're not going to do, they get angry and they get defensive, and because this is, and that's how you can tell someone is unable, they're not malleable, they're not flexible. They say that, I mean, I've had so many people tell me, well, I believe in personal this and that, and then they can't break through that. So the hero's journey is not about hiding in your room, playing video games or watching TV or binge whatever you're doing. It's not going out and going on retreats or running naked through the beach with your tribe. I mean, it's not about that. It's a very, it's an inner sacred spiritual process that is incredible. And so if you are going through confusion and you think, I don't know what is the purpose of life, it's because it's kind of like that old, whoever said the quote about bringing purpose into life. You bring your purpose, you by becoming authentic. And of course, here at Journey to Authentic Living, we define authenticity in a way of that's unique to you. It's your unique. I'm not here to tell you what that means to you, but it does mean breaking through. You cannot get to authenticity without shattering your beliefs, without changing your mind. I'm sorry. I mean, a lot of people, they just are very, it's like, I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to take yoga classes and Reiki, and I'm going to do crystals, and I'm going to get a degree in psychology or engineering, or, get a group tribe going on Instagram, and I'm going to live this happy go-to life. And that's what's going to get, and it's not. It's in the mess of things. It's having messy relationships that help you stretch that mind. So this is really what I talk about, the Clarion Call. And I've been through this, and it's really, it's sometimes you deny it within your person. You want to deny what that is. But you have all the tools that you need in your daily life. You have all the right people that come into your life. You attract your soul or your vibration, or whatever way you want to call it. You attract the people, your karma, however you want to describe it. You attract the people that are right there to help you. And in all the nuances of life. This is the most difficult thing to accept. This was hard I don't know if it's the most difficult thing to accept, but when you begin to see yourself as an outsider and think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that, or I believe that, or wait a minute, someone's challenging me on this. Maybe I wasn't correct here. Maybe I did overstep my boundaries with that person, or, instead of blame shifting, or, when we look at things, is this an opportunity to grow? Because if you hide away, then you are negating your calling. Okay, I don't want to make this too confusing, but I really wanted to make this video because a lot of you were asking me about this, and I hope it's been a little bit more clear, even though it is abstract. But again, to wrap it up, the Clarion Call is not always, it's demanding, because it's gnawing at you. You know that something's pulling you. That's what I mean by the Clarion Call, but it's not always clear, crystal clear. You're going to have doubt, self-doubts. Yeah. You're going to have confusion. So it's good to find a facilitator, a therapist, or a coach that can help you come through that. That they can hold your hand, not mollycoddle you, because we certainly don't want to be enablers. My goodness. It's not about, oh, you're so pretty and talented and wonderful, and you're a healer and you're a doctor and you're a this, and you just are going to save the world. Because if somebody talks to you like that, stay away from them. They're going to you're going to digress. You're not going to progress. So anyway, those are a few things. So keep on going, just continue. And if you have any questions, comment below, an opinion, whatever. I'm always welcome to it. And I hope that this has been encouraging for some of you who I know really struggle with understanding. They feel this pull. I hear you. And thank you for inviting me to actually talk a little bit about this in my experience. And let's demystify all of this, life purpose stuff, and that yes, it can be fun along the way. It certainly can. It's so important to have a guide. I had a few people here and there in my life that were extremely important to help me understand. But at the end of the day, you have to go through this. But having an accountability partner, someone to really help you take a look at that, is, I think, extremely important. And please try to find opportunity in everything so that you can really give the best version of who you are, so that you can really bring out all of who you are meant to be. And then that translates. It's not even about your career anymore. You're not looking at, if you're not an entrepreneur, why would you do that to yourself? You don't have to be an entrepreneur or a certified coach you could be a baseball league coach helping children. You could be at a convalescent home, caregiver or something, and bring that calling there. You could be doing it through computer work. You could be an excellent web designer and really just help people bring out their purpose through that medium. Okay. Encouraging you all to live authentically. Take care.